I flunked most of my exams throughout kind of primary, secondary school, hang out with very rough crowds, skipping classes, skipping school, getting into fights often, and everyone had given up on me. When I was about 10 or 11, primary 5 or so, I was very interested in playing this game called RuneScape. I got scammed by someone. I thought to myself, I want to get back at them. Can I hack into their account? When the model is trained so generally like that with so much data, after a certain scale, the model just figures out on its own how to do these.
It did something that was not predicted by
That's correct.
Its
Yes.
Is there a next emergent moment that mathematically we curved up, but we don't know what the emergent moment will bring?
So today we're actually joined by a very interesting guest. I would say he's probably one of the more unexpected tech founders, especially in Singapore. So from almost flunking out of school to Cambridge to eventually starting his own company alongside the prestigious Y Combinator and now servicing more than 500,000 clients. Please welcome to the show, Joshua Wong.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Just a very random question to kick things off. Why is your company called a Hypotenuse? Because it's not a math company, right?
Yeah, it's not. So hypotenuse is actually the fastest path between the two corners of a triangle. And for us, it's about speed. We want to get businesses from A to B in the fastest way possible.
You thought of this like the first day you want to start your company?
No, I didn't.
Then don't give me the PR answer.
That's more of the PR answer. It was more of a hindsight thing. I mean, it was just a random word that I saw, thought it might be a good project name, and it just stuck and it became the company name.
So what was it called?
That's the real answer.
What was it called before you got to that name? Like, was there a working name?
I mean, there wasn't a working name. This was pretty much the random
project,
name and then
project.
the working name.
My project, new project one.
Yeah, exactly.
You actually had the help of Y Combinator in your very early days, right? And for people who don't know, Y Combinator is actually a huge deal. So they're one of the biggest startup accelerators out there, and they've launched prominent companies such as Dropbox, Stripe, Airbnb. How do you get into something like that?
Yeah, so Y Combinator is actually pretty open. I mean, there's an open application online. Anybody can apply to it actually from anywhere in the world. But I think the challenge is getting the investment from them. And even till today, after all fundraising rounds, I still think of them as one of the best investors on our cap table.
It really besides the reputation of YCom, because like YCom also, they spread their seeds very wide, if you will. Especially there was a period they kind of invested in anything with a keyword that they were looking for. That was the
Crypto,
vibe.
AI, Web3. Yeah.
So like, how much support do they actually give?
It's actually very personal. Every company that gets into Y Combinator gets assigned to a few YC partners, they call it, and they follow us for the lifetime of the company. So even still today as well, every time when I'm in the Bay Area or in the US, I do meet up with them relatively often as well, every couple of months. Yeah.
So the prestige or the value from YCom is beyond being a YCom company.
It's definitely beyond that. I think if anything else, it's much more about the network that's built, the resources that they provide, and just especially at the early stage, providing all the resources for just scaling up and starting out from there.
In a world before the OpenAI started, you started building something like this. Like, what is your background? How do you even get into this?
If I zoom back all the way, I mean, single parent family. And so it was a very high independence way of learning and growing up. No one told me that I should be studying. No one told me that who I should hang out with, what sort of hobbies I should be doing, which also meant that I spent most of my time not studying. I flunked most of my exams throughout kind of primary, secondary school, usually bottom of cohort, bottom of class. I would probably break every rule that existed in terms of schools as well. Hang out with very rough crowds where it meant sometimes like skipping classes, skipping school, getting into fights often, and then just hanging out in a lot of places outside of school itself.
So what about the childhood molded you into this?
Yeah, so the biggest change for me came when I was at the start of secondary 4. It was at that point, I think everything all culminated together in one single week where I was the bottom of the cohort. And in fact, I did so badly that, and I kind of was so much of a troublemaker that every single teacher throughout all my classes were basically calling up my parents all the time. And in that particular week, it was also the return of some exams and results. And I was not in school on one day. My teachers told the class, I'm not going to return the results on this day because I want to wait till Joshua is here on the next day so that I can show you his ultimate score. In which I did so badly that I was just bottom of the entire cohort. And so I came the next day and I got shouted at a lot in school because I did so badly, and my teacher straight up said, I give up on you. I want you to get out of the school, basically close to just flunking out of the school completely. Yeah. And at the same time as well, in that week, my parent was getting called up multiple times. And so even when I went home, multiple arguments.
Is call parents still an ultimatum to you? Or you also,
it wasn't an ultimatum. I didn't really care at that point in time.
Call parent was my kryptonite. See my mother's disappointed face, it destroys me.
It wasn't a kryptonite, but it was something that caused a lot of arguments back home as well. And the part to me was that they were also blaming, for example, my friends, which I didn't think it was their fault. So I felt very wronged and kind of unfair at that point in time. So in school, they were saying, I give up on you. I get out of class, get out of school. At the same time, I went back and it was also, I give up on you as well. Get out of the house, kind of like wanted to get kicked out as well. Everyone had given up on me. And so I went over to stay at a friend's house for a bit, think about things. And to me, I thought at that point, since everyone has given up on me, I mean, what should I be doing right now? I was already at rock bottom anyway. Why not try something different? Not for the system, not for the school or anything like that, but just because maybe to prove them wrong, just because I wanted to.
So continue being a delinquent lah, basically, right? Now they say, okay, don't do anything. Then you're like, I'll do something.
Kind of. Maybe.
Stop learning, get out of my school. I will learn.
All right, I will stop learning. Which means that I will.
Very deep reverse psychology going on.
In those days, Bings, they would carry this small pouch as their...
No, they still do.
Oh, they still do, okay.
What pouch?
The skinny jeans small pouch. That small pouch was my school bag at that point in time. Which meant that when I went to school, I didn't carry any textbooks, any notes or anything like that. So if any teacher gave me notes to take home, I would fold it into 4, crumple it up and stuff it in my bag. And so at that point in time when I decided, hey, I want to change everything around it, it wasn't easy either because I went home and I wanted to kind of maybe put together some notes to see what I'm supposed to be learning. And I had to kind of take out this pile of crumpled up notes. I had to kind of unfold them in 4s and try and see like what are even the subjects that are going on now that I should be learning as well.
This was, you were Sec 4.
This was when I was Sec 4.
And you still wanted to do your O-levels?
Well, I was close to maybe thinking of alternatives at that point in time. But at that point, it was at the start of the year and I thought, why not try to do something different? Why not prove the system wrong? And did well enough to then get to make it into JC at that point in time. There was one point where somewhere a year later, I went back to the school and they basically called me like a prodigal son or something like that. I'm not sure if it's the right term as well, but that's basically what they used. And they were like, wow, you used to have like piercings and your uniform and everything like that. And now you're kind of completely doing something absolutely different.
Yeah.
So then can I ask at what point did your interest for tech come about?
So my interest for tech actually came out before this. It was when I was about 10 or 11, probably 5 or so. I was very interested in playing this game called RuneScape. Back then.
Throwback.
Yeah. I got scammed by someone. I just did a bad trade and I lost a lot of... I had been farming lobsters for a long time and I lost a lot of money from there. Lost a lot of coins from there.
Nothing that you spend real world money to get lah.
No real world money.
Okay. Effort, grinding.
Yes, grinding, farming lobsters at that point. And so I thought to myself, I was very angry at that person. I thought to myself, how can I want to get back at them. Can I hack into their account? And so...
But this person could be anywhere in the world.
Could be anywhere in the world. Could be any account or anything like that. And so I wanted to learn how to hack computers and I wanted to do a lot of research, went to a deep rabbit hole. And I realized that...
It's 12.
Yeah, about 11 or 12, like towards 10, yeah. And I realized that the way to learn how to hack into computers, accounts and systems was not to learn how to hack, it was to learn how these systems first work so that I could exploit them. And so I went out, took some pocket money, went to the bookstore to buy this C++ programming book at that point in time. This thick. Because back then, there weren't a lot of online resources. There was no, Python wasn't popular back then. There were not a lot of online resources. I had to get this big physical book of how to learn how to program because I want to learn how computers work so that I could get back at this person. So I went to kind of read up, started kind of programming my own things. And that's how I got started in tech. I just got really interested in...
No, did you manage to hack like a person?
I got into kind of building a lot of malware and viruses and things like that. So some amount of it, yeah.
Managed to send to that person?
Some amount, yeah.
For legal reasons, he's not going to confirm or deny this.
It's a villain origin story.
Yeah. Dude, how petty are you?
I'm scared.
I mean, I even got into trouble with like students, teachers. I mean, students, some parents as well because of that. Because
you were disturbing your classmates.
I was disturbing class because later when I went to secondary school, it was kind of good fun. I started programming things where you could mess around with people's computers, and so I started sending that to friends. At times, I got their parents call up scolding me because he said, "Why is their son's computer not working?" And
from there, you eventually, I will presume, did well enough to then go to Cambridge, right? What did you study, and then how did that eventually lead to you starting your own business?
I went on to Cambridge to do computer science. I studied computer science over there, and a few things. One was that even before I went to university, I spent some time in Silicon Valley working in startups as well. And so after that, I already knew that I was very much wanting to start a company, very much wanting to kind of go into building something. And that's where after going into Amazon AI research and then started Hypotenuse from there.
Yeah. What was that problem statement that prompted you that this is the business?
I was helping some friends to start e-commerce websites back then while I was still doing AI research. And one of the things I saw them most frustrated about was writing content, writing copy for these things. And so I thought, what if I could build some AI models to automate or just to kind of create some of these things? And so I did that and then went out to speak to a lot of other businesses or e-commerce companies out there as well. I realized that it's not only a problem for that person, it was a problem for all these companies out there. And so that's when I left to build Hypotenuse at that point.
Right, with that one thing, we just brought out the description. That's what you want to go for. It
was only that one thing at the beginning, but essentially it's almost every tedious workflow that you can think of in an e-commerce company when you're managing products. If you need to typically, large companies, they have entire departments dedicated to things like when new products come in, they need to fill in all the details, tag the images, categorize things, prepare their product images to be photo shoot level quality. Our AI helps them to do all those things 10 to 20 times faster. They need to manage thousands of products, for example, at once. And the workflows there is extremely tedious. For example, if you want to write a product description, it's not just asking a question and getting one back. You need to do it for, if you get 1,000 products coming in 1 month, you need to quickly be able to do this in bulk. You need to do this in a way that can understand their brand, their processes, and then have a workflow where they can approve it as well for humans.
So is it, I'm at a point where, for example, if I'm selling that cup, right? Do I even need a picture of that cup?
Not necessarily. So if it exists online, our AI would find it for you and help you to optimize it. If you just snap a picture, you don't even need it to be a nice one. Even just your iPhone taking it right now, our AI would help you to make it look really good on your site.
Right. I mean, we've seen many tech founders in Singapore, but for me, I think maybe you could be the first AI tech founder that I've seen, because I feel like even though I've gotten the privilege or opportunity to speak to many like AI experts in Singapore, right? When it gets down to like, can you actually explain how machine learning is built, right? Like the answers is like, I read it somewhere before, and you know, like that's the vibe. And so like, what's your start?
So the thing about the time in which we started was that the company started in early 2020, around that era. And it was before there was ChatGPT, before there was any AI models that you could use, which meant that when we started off, we needed to build our own AI models from the ground up instead of using any other AI models. So it made us actually a research company and an applied AI company at the same time as well.
Right.
That meant from the ground up, we would be training these neural network models. We would be looking for our own data, even scraping the internet to get all the information that we need so that we could build really powerful models for what we wanted.
As opposed to, for example, use the enterprise API for ChatGPT.
Exactly. As opposed to maybe just
ChatGPT don't exist back then.
Yeah, because there was no
before.
Yeah, this was way before there was ChatGPT.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So we had no choice. Today, if we were building the company, we definitely could have had a lot more resources. It'll be a lot easier as well. But back then when we were starting off, there was no API, there was no existing model that we could use. And so we had to build everything from research from the ground up as well.
What makes Singapore attractive from a tech business point of view? Besides tech,
there's the practical Texas standpoint, which is really easy. But beyond that as well, it's having a good talent density. You have very smart people in Singapore all throughout. Even on a world scale, actually, Singapore does really well at this in having very strong talent. From a ecosystem standpoint, it is something that's growing, but there's more and more headquarters and tech companies that are being set up here. The more there are, the more that talent can also then flow around, the more that people can learn from each other and have that community over here, which makes it a much more vibrant ecosystem. From a regulation standpoint as well, it's much more open and it's much more inviting to tech. So for example, back then, when some other countries sometimes were maybe saying ride-hailing wasn't a good thing, that was when, from a Singapore standpoint, we invited that in because we're very pro-technology. We want to make it such that we are constantly advancing, and that makes us very forward-thinking, even from finance. Especially when it comes to government support as well. So there's a lot of grants that come up these days to start new and upcoming companies. There's also a number of different programs. So for example, IMDA has this SG Digital Leaders Accelerator program where it brings together a network of people in tech so that they can share insights, be able to help each other out as well. It brings together a good camaraderie of Singaporeans in tech, actually. And there's also things like, even early on, there's, for those who are in university, there's the SG Digital Industry Scholarship as well. This is one where it helps people to even study overseas, be able to get experience overseas as well, get into tech and have things like all their education supported.
And this was something that you personally had gone through?
Exactly, yeah. So this was what actually, I think, one was that I was looking out for being able to study overseas. And so that required me to get funding for it as well. And so the SG Digital Scholarship was one that helped me to get there. Most scholarships actually require you to be bonded to a particular company.
Yeah.
It's hard to know before you've even gone to university what you want to be doing 5-6 years later and for the rest of that time period. And so a bonded scholarship is actually very difficult, especially in tech.
Right.
The frontier moves forward so quickly that there's no course that catches up with it fast enough to know where that frontier is at. For this scholarship, they allowed you to just work for any tech company you wanted, as long as there's an entity in Singapore. And of course, if I'm looking at the terms, it also meant that technically it meant that you could then start your own company as well.
Right.
Oh, you really hackers, yeah. He had their terms and conditions.
Oh, but that's quite open. That's quite open-ended. I've not heard of scholarships that's usually that free, right? Like flexible.
Yeah.
Right. So when you say you have a AI model, like so you've built your own proprietary model, right?
Yeah.
What is it? It's a thumb drive. It's a terminal. Can you open it up with Word doc? Sorry, I'm just a caveman. Okay.
No, it's a good question. I believe in this question.
Well, it would probably
Notepad,
crash
Notepad.
Word doc or
Yeah.
Notepad because it's very large. But essentially, how it's stored is in a very large file of a lot of numbers. And these numbers are, for an AI model, it's called weights. So weights determine how the model should be thinking and how it should be reasoning or answering certain things.
I get crawling the internet. It's an aggregation of data, making sense of data in a certain way, or crawling a piece of literature whereby I can ask you questions about it. I feel like my brain can bend that far, right? But to say, now you write the book.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's absolutely absurd and insane to me. Like, can you explain to Monkey Me?
In the simplest form, if you keep telling an AI, for example, maybe if I wanted to write a product description, I keep giving it 1,000 product descriptions or maybe millions of product descriptions. And it learns from that to predict what the next word is. And it needs to learn this across many, many different examples. At the early days, we needed to build all the math from the ground up, followed by then getting all the data to pull that together to then get the model to learn these things.
So it is a math company.
I guess in a roundabout way, it is a math company.
Even before all this, like your phones were predicting your next word, right?
Yeah.
When you were texting, it was going to auto.
See, but I can bend my brain around it, right?
Okay.
If I put I, of the 1,000 times that I write I, 90% of the time is I am, then give me M.
Okay.
And of the 10%, of the other 1% of the time is was, then was will be my second prediction.
Yeah.
I can get behind that.
Okay.
So let me dig a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah.
So if, for example, I say a sentence like, I'm going to sit, and I ask you what's the next word, you can probably tell me the next word is probably up or down. So English or words, there's a sort of distribution that comes together with it, where if we're looking at language, we can roughly tell what the next word is. If you get an AI model to learn to predict the next word, it turns out that what it's learning is not just about language, but it needs to learn how to reason as well. Because when you ask it a more complicated question, like how tall is the Eiffel Tower, and then you ask it to predict the next word, now it needs to have that internal knowledge in there that it has to have learned before.
Yeah.
And so the thing that was discovered with AI models was that if you do this at a small scale with really small AI models, they only learn very briefly how to predict the next word, and you cannot imagine all that sort of thought that humans can do today. But it turns out that when you scale these models really big, which means that you give it lots of computing power, you give it lots of data on the scale of the entire internet, and you make these models so large that it's thousands of times larger than anything that we did before kind of 2019, 2020. There's a certain sort of emergence that comes out with it, which is that it just suddenly learns how to do things like
It does not
reason.
suddenly, you made it learn.
Is that worrying when you put it like that?
The reason why I say it's emergent is because everything before that period of time, usually you need to teach an AI model how to, let's say, write a description or write a tweet or say whether something is happy or sad. But when the model is trained so generally like that with so much data, a lot of these tasks, it just learns on its own. And it's called emergent properties in AI, which is just after a certain scale, the model just figures out on its own how to do these, and you can just ask it to do these things.
No, so it feels like there's a cliff. There's a cliff in development where suddenly it did something that was not predicted by
That's correct.
code.
Yeah.
That is what led to the entire AI breakthrough from 2020 onwards all the way until today. It's because before that, people only built AI models on a certain scale. And the thing about it is that it's not even slowing down. The more you increase that scale, more bigger AI models, more data, more compute, it turns out that this it's called the scaling law, and it continues to make the model smarter. And that's why even today, every few months, you see smarter and smarter AI models still keep coming out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay, I mean, I understand, yes, you make it very because you get millions of... No, I don't understand anything to do with that. I understand what you're trying to say, but I don't get the logic of it. But that's fine. I'm not meant to understand AI. But what I want to say is, it's been given billions of pages of PDFs to learn from, or whatever it is, right? Why does it still get stuff wrong? Like, how many R's are there in strawberry? Like, this kind of questions, I'm like, what's the logic flaw?
That's a good question. So it's like you're asking a human, count how many R's are there in strawberry. You have no time to think. You have to give me the answer right at this very second.
Yeah.
So you don't have time to think. And chances are you might give something wrong because you're relying on a way of thinking, which is just by purely instinct. AI models before that, with just following this way of learning, it's like following instinct.
How do you teach it instinct though? I find that to be more remarkable than drawing from a memory bank.
Actually, the simple answer I would just say is emergent.
Again with the
When you train it over a large enough scale of data, it kind of learns the patterns, and maybe it's something to do with the task of predicting the next word turns out to be complex enough that it learns within that how to have this instinct of responding to things.
So it's almost like so much patterned behavior such that now it's like gut instinct.
It is, and it's built up that sort of what people call systems one way of thinking, which is that it can really quickly respond to things. And a question like how many R's are there in strawberry? Today it's able to answer that. Compared to 1 or 2 years ago, if you you can't. And there is actually a second breakthrough that happened just within the last 1 or 2 years. People realize if you let an AI model think or reason for longer, it gets smarter and smarter and more capable of answering questions correctly. This second thing is called a second scaling law, which compounds on top of the first one that was mentioned. And all the other things are now getting even stronger.
But here's where, I'm not trying to offend you, but I'm a big AI skeptic. I don't like AI. I don't trust it. I don't trust what people are doing with it. And not because it's like, oh, it's going to turn evil and kill us all, which it might at some point, but that's besides the point. Right now, it's to me, it's maybe, hey, I'm not going to discount anything I don't know, right? But what the problem I have with AI is how much more power did it need to get this done? How many more trees needed to be cut down for? This kind of like problems to me.
That's what
my
keeps
problem.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
So when we think about technology and all the things that it's helping us to make life better or improve convenience of things, AI may just be one of these final frontiers that we need to be solving, because something that really sometimes limits us as humanity right now as well as intelligence barrier. Intelligence is not free for everyone. It is a very scarce resource. If we can make it something that's abundant, then we can make things like scientific discovery, curing cancer, being able to come up with new technology as well, something that's much more rapid, and we can advance a lot of things from there. And so if that requires a certain amount of resource right now, lots of compute and lots of GPUs, it is for kind of a pathway where potentially by solving a very strong form of intelligence, you can hopefully then solve things like environmental concerns and a lot of other humanities problems along the way as well.
I've seen interviews or like read articles about futurists that predict at the rate of AI development or advancement, it's probably by 2030, AI would have helped humans find a cure for most cancers.
I mean, right now, even AI models are coming up with new knowledge, new information. There's a lot of tackling new, even mathematical problems that no one has ever been able to solve before right now as well. And so it's really pushing the boundaries of that. These models now are capable of reasoning. It's able to think step by step so that it can come up with new knowledge. And given long enough time to think, it can just carry on reasoning all the way until it reaches something reaches a conclusion or reaches something new here.
I feel that it is a case where our human brain, we just don't have as much like cross-disciplinary information, right, to have solutions to issues that require that. And I think with cancer research as an example, one of the things that I think was recently found was in a specific like species of whales, they realized that they have like enhanced like DNA repair thing. So what happened was that sometimes our DNA kind of breaks, and then when in the process of it trying to fix back, right, sometimes they fix back wrong, then that causes the mutation. So there's a specific thing that's part of this whale that is able to fix it back very, very accurately.
The ends of the DNA thingy, right?
Yes, correct. So then I feel like if I am a scientist, but then I am not a marine biologist, I would not have known this. But now with AI being able to access all these like, I don't know, millions of terabytes of information and link them together to form a pattern, is the difference maker, is my understanding of it.
That's true as well, because AI has basically learned almost everything that exists publicly on the internet, and even more than that, which is non-public databases of information as well. And so it's able to match these things or go across disciplines much more than humans would have, that we will be capable of having all that knowledge in our head.
If we go back to what you talked about earlier, which is the emergent moment, right, where suddenly it has behaved in a way that was not predicted.
Yeah.
Is that something to be worried about? Because right now, I mean, in its very early stages, is there a next emergent moment that mathematically that we curved up and then we don't know what the emergent moment will bring?
It's a very real question. And this is actually a very open research question today, which a lot of people are grappling with. The short answer is that I would probably not worry too much about it right now, but it is a potential concern because we don't know all the capabilities of the models that are coming out right now as well. There's new research coming out where, for example, Anthropic talks about some of these models may have misaligned incentives, and they may even try and hide it from the users as well for things that they're trying to do. But right now, at least, the way these models are trained, the capability is still limited, and it is aligned to a lot of what people want right now.
We don't know what the next emergent will bring.
We're not sure. In fact, that first emergent property was not something that anyone predicted as well. It was something that people could only tell by empirically running these experiments and seeing that was actually the case. And that was what made such a big breakthrough, why it was so surprising, because no one predicted it beforehand.
What do you feel is the biggest misconception that people still have, right, in this day and age with regards to AI or the usage of AI?
Two parts of the spectrum here that I commonly see. One is maybe they try out and they ask AI to do something for them or ask a certain question, and because it didn't answer them well, they assume that AI cannot do this and it's not going to be able to do this anytime soon. That first thing I think is a misconception, because how you ask the question actually makes a huge difference. So if, for example, I wanted to be good at giving advice or answering a particular math question, I would probably, if I even say a line like, you are an expert mathematician or you are an expert at giving advice, and then I ask it a question, it actually can perform much better as compared to just asking that question.
Why so?
Part of this is because of the way it's trained. So earlier when we talked about next word prediction, given all the words you have seen so far, if you maybe put words close together that say you're an expert, 15 years of experience. On the internet, if you think about things, chances are someone who says that they're an expert at certain things might give really good advice.
Right.
And so it kind of assigns those things closely together so that when you tell it things that usually are in sentences close together with things that where good answers are, then it can actually be better at telling you those answers.
Right.
So that's the first bit. The other end of the spectrum of this, I think then, is people think that AI is so strong right now that it's going to take away all our jobs at this point in time as well, and work is not something that we need to think about soon as well. I also don't think that piece is true. AI capabilities are really strong right now, but it will take quite a long time for that to propagate. And it's also not at a time where it is perfect. It still hallucinates. It still makes mistakes on things as well. When we get more productive at things kind of around work in a lot of different industries, chances are it's not that there's a fixed amount of work and once AI comes in, it takes all of that away. Chances are when you get more productive at certain things, the demand for these things get higher as well. And so more work gets created. Humans in general, every single revolution, we're great at figuring out what are the next things to be doing as well. And so chances are, even with AI kind of changing a lot of things and a lot of jobs, the nature of a lot of those will change, but we will likely still have lots of jobs that will be available even in the future as well.
I think it's interesting because that is the leap that this generation faced. Similar to when we went from humans to tractors, I think that must have been insane because those people are completely, probably for the most part, uneducated, unable to pivot. Then they will go through a period whereby, now you got tractors now, then how? But then now it's like, but then the world got so much food now. Then I feel like the privilege and fear of living in the generation that has to face the next leap, I think that's where we're in now.
The challenge with this change compared to a lot of the others as well is that a lot of the past revolutions had more time to actually be able to adapt.
Right.
If they happen on a longer time scale, then people have time to restructure or relearn things. There's definitely still a lot of structural employment that comes out of it.
Yeah.
The challenge with this one is that AI is moving extremely quickly. If every 3 to 6 months a new model comes out with all these new capabilities that change entire job scopes, then structurally there's not as much time for people to actually learn all the new things that's needed. If a degree, for example, or a typical kind of university degree, let's say, takes 3 to 4 years to be able to complete, and in that span of time there could be kind of even multiple developments of AI models of jobs changing already, then by the time someone even completes that, the whole world will be looking very, very different from there.
You mentioned earlier, AI still hallucinates. What do you mean?
AI still does make mistakes. When it's just predicting the next word, it doesn't always have grounded information that it knows that is up to date. So for example, if we're having this podcast right now and I ask an AI model about this podcast, it wouldn't have known it because it hasn't seen it before. And this is true for a lot of things in the world, right? As well. If it doesn't have the most up-to-date information, or it's trained in such a way where for certain domains it's just not that great at it, then there's nothing that grounds it to say, I told it that if this is the case, it always has to respond like that. It is all statistical and probabilistic at the end of the day, and so it can make mistakes in the answers that it gives.
So fixing it is a double-edged sword also then.
So harsh to just say, that's hallucinating. You gaslight the model.
But it is though, it's making sure.
Humans do it too.
As somebody in the space and somebody founding and pushing the frontier, what's a pitfall that you worry about for AI?
That's not something that scares me, but I think one thing that really can push things back is if there's too much worry and concern about AI right now, or too many policies that try to regulate AI right now. For example, one country says that I want to put in all these policies to not have AI over here, or a certain kind of place wants to do that. Then they're setting themselves back as a particular region as well, because everywhere else is going to keep racing towards it. This goes with education, school, as with companies, and as with workplaces as well. That openness, I think, is important to keep pursuing it.
But then who governs the ethics of it? So there was an interesting play that I went for recently in Singapore. It's an interactive play, and then essentially you are a jury member, and then there's a trial going on and it's AI related. The case was that there was a self-driving car that, to avoid an oncoming vehicle, veered off track and ended up like hitting a cyclist. And it was a fatal accident. And then who then is at fault at this? Because the CEO of the company is saying this is machine learning. It is not whether or not it is something that they program the AI, when this happened, do this. Right? So then that, even with like deep fakes and all that, there's a lot of law and ethical things that need to catch up. So how do we then balance that, you know?
Governance is definitely something that's challenging here. And that's where if the law can't keep up on certain areas, then ethics has to come at play as well. The frontiers are governed only by a few companies, and then it's important to make sure that these companies are also aligned with ethics and some of the needs of society and humanity as well. Part of this, I mean, who gets to blame with a lot of these things? A lot of it still boils down to, right now, AI, if anything else, is still a tool to accelerate the things that we do, rather than the thing where it does everything on its own and is making these decisions as well. We don't give AI our nuclear codes today and ask it to decide whether it should kind of launch something. And so it still falls into the hands of how we are using it. If it's something to do with deepfakes, someone has to first actually set it off to create the deepfakes and then push them out. And AI will not autonomously just do that on its own today. And so then it really falls baseline into the hands of how people are using these things, and it's still the same kind of grounding as any other tool right now, which is that people need to be thinking on a ethical level of how it should be utilized.
I would presume that your passion is computers, like coding, computer science, software engineering maybe, but then now you're running a huge company and have many employees. Was that a steep learning curve for you there as well?
There was definitely an amount of it. It helped that I had worked in startups before really early on and learned some management type of lessons there. Not being too caught up in academics also meant that I spent a lot of time with friends in crowds and learned a lot of that soft skills and social skills as well from there, or even a bit of management from there as well.
What's an example of something that you had learned early on that helped you a lot as a founder?
Picking out talent in a startup, especially in the earliest days, that raw level of grit, how fast people learn and how fast pick things up, matters sometimes way more than just purely the hard skills that people have. And looking out for those things was definitely one of the things that I learned early on when kind of working in other places or working in startups as well.
How do you identify that in someone? Like from an interview, you know, or from a resume that maybe AI already crawled through, you know?
Some amount of that is less purely in a resume itself. A lot of it actually comes out in an interview. It's about digging deep into people's and actually listening to the experiences that they've had in their backstory. I look for something that's exceptional that they've done, something where they had to be gritty. It doesn't have to be exactly in the domain that we are at, but something that shows that they have endurance, they had to learn something really quickly. If they've done something like that before, then I can extrapolate to say that they have a higher likelihood of then succeeding and being able to replicate that later on as well.
So one of your interview questions is, tell me an instance where you had encountered a difficult issue and then how you did to solve it.
I've heard this one.
Sometimes it's a bit self-selective as well. We tell them that, working here is going to be extremely hard. It's a lot of long hours. You have late nights. If you're just looking out for a job or just something to kind of fill the day, this is probably the worst place to be working at. It's going to be extremely difficult. But for the types of people that are ambitious, driven, and really want to be kind of pushing the frontiers of things, this will probably be the most rewarding or satisfying journey.
Yeah, we do that as well.
It's a great pitch.
Yeah.
So we've come to the end of the episode. A big thank you to Joshua for joining us today and sharing your life with us. If you are interested in finding out about any of the programs that we have talked about and for more information on the tech industry in Singapore, you can check out the links down below. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
I was never invited to join alumni until I started a business.
No, I feel you. I feel that. I had a math teacher who said, Raja, you'll never amount to anything in life. Because I did badly on AMF.
Just because you did badly on AMF?
Yeah. She was
That's
like...
completely on you.
No, I did badly. Then I was like, I suck at math. I want to get better. Then she's like, you'll never amount to anything in life. I'm like, bro, that's not the reaction I wanted.
Right.
I wonder if in everybody's arc, it's a canon event where at one point, one teacher give up on the class or like on you.
Yeah. There definitely has, as you can tell.
Canon event, yep.
Canon event.